Welcome to module number 4. And in this module, we'll focus on project monitoring. So, what we'll look at is just the first thing is understanding what monitoring is all about, as well as understanding the importance of monitoring a project. And then you also look at the steps to conduct monitoring. And then we also look at what are some of the challenges that we face as we're monitoring some of the projects. So by the end of this module, participants will be able to design and implement an effective program monitoring plan that includes key elements such as regularity, activity, and outcome tracking, as well as data analysis techniques. So participants will be equipped with the tools to identify some of the challenges in program monitoring, as well as apply some of the strategies, on how to handle some of these challenges. So this is what we're going to cover in this module. Understanding monitoring. What is program monitoring? So program monitoring is a systematic ongoing process designed to collect, analyze, and interpret data about a program's implementation and effectiveness. So the primary goal is just to ensure that the program is progressing towards its intended outcomes and objectives. So what monitoring does is that it provides the real-time insights. It facilitates informed decision making as well as allows for timely adjustments so that you can improve your project or your program performance. Monitoring will help us now answer or address some of these questions. Are we implementing the programs or the projects that we planned? Are we on track to meet our objectives? Are the activities yielding the expected outputs? Right? So that's what monitoring is all about. It helps you to answer these questions. What, what are some of the key elements of program monitoring? So the first element is regularity. So with monitoring, activities they occur at a defined interval, right? So you are doing maybe activities, you plan to do a training, you'd want to do maybe a bi-weekly or a monthly training or even a quarterly training, right? So um, activities have to be defined within these intervals, right? So that because it's going to help you to have data that is up to date and relevant, right? So regular monitoring enables program managers to quickly identify if at all you're moving away from your plan, right? You're moving away from what you said you do, right? The other thing that it helps program managers, it helps them to implement cor- corrective measures before issues escalate, right? So you discover an issue, you address that before it even worsens. The other thing that monitoring does, it helps to maintain momentum towards the program goal. So if you could see that your indicator is doing fine, you're at 50%, next month you're at 60%, the other month. So it helps you to keep that momentum so that you keep going until you hit your objective, right? So basically that's what these are some of the that's what I wanted to share with you on regularity. So you do your regular monitoring activities, you identify any deviation. If you see there's any deviation in that project, you implement some corrective measures, then it will help you to maintain the momentum. The second element of program monitoring is focus on activities and outputs. So monitoring involves tracking both activities conducted and the intermediate outputs, right? So the key aspects you need to include as you are, doing your monitoring is having things like activity tracking or tracker. So these will help you to ensure that all the planned activities are executed within the budget and on time. The other thing that you will need also is just an output measurement tool that you can develop where you just want to assess the direct results of the activities, such as the number of people that the number of sessions you've conducted, the number of materials you've distributed, or the number of people that you've trained. So you need to have those tracking tools or systems in place so that you're able to track your monitoring. The other thing also is the outcome monitoring. This aspect focuses on measuring the long-term impact of the program of the target population. So you need to, have some of these consideration as you're trying to come up with monitoring systems on how you're going to, monitor the outcomes. So you need to evaluate the knowledge gains. For example, if you've done a training, you're training farmers in smart agriculture. You need to evaluate their knowledge gains, right? Their behavior change, uh, and then also with monitoring, it's going to answer questions like, are we seeing the expected change as a result of our activities, right? So if you said we train farmers in smart agriculture, are these farmers actually applying what they are being taught? So with monitoring, you're going now to answer those questions. So, okay, yes, these guys were trained in this farming, in this sector, and they're now implementing what they were trained. So monitoring helps you to answer some of these questions. What are some of the importance of monitoring a project? The first thing that I want to talk about is monitoring helps to demonstrate accountability. When you're implementing a project and you are able to track your project's implementation, you're able to track how your project is performing, and you can be able to demonstrate accountability. You'll be able to share that information with the stakeholders, the funders, the donors, and everybody will be able to know what you're doing because you have a monitoring tracking system in place, right? So that brings accountability and transparency in your project. The other thing that the other thing that I can say is an importance of monitoring is it supports program improvements. So when you're implementing a project and you discover that there are some gaps that you have identified, right? So when you're doing your monitoring, you identify some of these gaps. You say this community does not, is not using this service, or this community is not welcoming this service. So you'll be able to make changes based on that monitoring data. So that's the importance of monitoring because it helps you to, make improvements of your project or your program based on the monitoring data or monitoring visits that you are conducting. The other thing that um, I can talk about the importance of monitoring is it helps to identify potential issues because you're getting real-time data, you're interacting with the community, you're implementing a project in the community, you're interacting with the community, you are getting real-time data, and with real-time data, you'll be able to identify what are some of the gaps with our some of the gaps with our project? What are some of the gaps in the community that you feel can be, handled? So it will help you to identify some of those gaps and you work on those feedback to improve the whole program, right? The other thing also, it ensures program implementation. So when you have a monitoring system in place, you're going to ensure that your program implementation is followed according to what was planned, right? So if you say, no, we want to train 100 people, with monitoring, you're going to follow up to say, have you trained the people that you said you would train? Right? If you say you're going to hold all these sessions, have you done these sessions? So monitoring will just ask you and ensure that your implementation is up to standard, right? So just to explain further on the same importance there. So with the first one, which is saying ensures program implementation as planned. So regular monitoring helps to confirm that activities are being carried out according to the established plan, right? Identifies potential issues. So timed identification of challenges enables program managers to intervene quickly and to minimize the negative impacts on outcome. The other thing is supports program improvement. Data collected through monitoring can inform adjustments or improvement of the project, thereby fostering continuous improvement. Demonstrates accountability because you're working with data, you're providing evidence of the program's success and impact. It helps you to build trust with stakeholders, funders, and the community. So this all ensures transparency and accountability. One would wonder to say, how can I conduct monitoring? I've implemented a project, but how can I conduct monitoring? So in the next slides, I'm going to share with you how to conduct monitoring or how to monitor a project. So these are some of the steps that you need to take for you to conduct an effective program monitoring. So the first thing that you need to do, you need to define your objectives and indicators. Okay? Then you develop a monitoring plan. How are you going to monitor that data? Then you collect your data, you analyze your data, you report the findings, you make informed decision based on the findings. The other thing also, you just review and revise the plan. You know. Okay. So now just to break down in details of what each step requires us to do. So the first step, which is define clear, effective, object, clear objective and indicators. So you need to define clear objectives and indicators. So before monitoring can begin, it's crucial to establish clear objectives for that program, and ensure that these objectives are smart. So alongside with these objectives, you need to develop indicators that will help you to measure progress, right? Because monitoring goes hand in hand with indicators. So you need to have indicators that align with your objective, and these have to be smart indicators, smart objective, right? So they could be qualitative or quantitative depending on the nature of the project, but you need to have indicators before you even think of doing monitoring. The second step that you need to do is you need to develop a monitoring plan. So just create something that is that will help you to just outline how data will be collected, analyzed, and reported. So this plan can include data collection methods that you're going to use, the frequency of monitoring, as well as the role and responsibilities. Right? So you can outline that in your M&D plan that you've developed. You can outline all those things so that you'll be able to follow through as you're doing your monitoring. The third step is collect data, right? Monitoring, it's all about data. You cannot monitor where there's no data. So collect that data. You need to implement your monitoring evaluation plan that you have developed, by collecting data according to the methods that you have said and according to the frequency. If you're going to be doing a monthly data collection, a weekly data collection, a quarterly data collection, you need to stick by that, okay? So that you ensure that data is systematic and consistent, as well as you maintain the integrity of information gathered, right? So that is that. Step 4, you need to analyze that data. Once data is collected, you need to process it, clean it, analyze it to assess the progress against the targets or the defined indicators. Okay, you're going to use different tools, statistical tools, qualitative analysis techniques to improve, interpret your data. So you just look for trends. Why is this facility or why is this community not, using this service, right? You analyze, you look at the trends. This community has been using this service and this is what is happening. So you analyze that information and come up with a story from there. Right? So in summary, you need to collect data. You implement your monitoring version plan. You do the systematic collection. You do stakeholder engagement as you're doing data collection. And then always ensure that there's data integrity in the process. Analyze data. You assess the progress. Use statistical tools, qualitative techniques. The key is to identify the trends and patterns in your data. Step 5, you report. Okay? You collected data, you've analyzed your data. What's the next thing? Report. Information is only useful when it is shared. Okay? So you have your report, make sure you share that report with the relevant stakeholders, program officer, whoever needs to have a copy of that because information is only useful once it is shared. So, what do you need to do? You need to prepare a report that summarizes the finding from your data analysis or from your monitoring visit. So these reports should be clear, concise, and tailored to the audience. Whether it is program staff, stakeholders, or funders. I mean, just do a simple report, use visual charts, graphs to just improve understanding. Okay, you highlight the key insights, successes, as well as areas that need improvement. Step 6, make informed decision. You have your report and you've seen that this indicator you're not doing fine in this project. You need to make informed decision. You need to make adjustment, right? So the findings that you have from the monitoring process, you need to use them to make informed decision about the program. So this may involve adjusting strategies, relocating resources, implementing a new initiative to address these identified challenges. Engage stakeholders in the discussion of these findings, right? Always engage stakeholders because they are part and parcel of the project. Don't sit in your office um, with your team and just with your organization and just conclude and decide to say, oh, we need to do this. No. You need to engage your stakeholders. They are part and parcel of this project. The community members, if you're dealing with the community, let them come on board. Let their voices be heard. They know more than you do. They are the people that know the solutions. They are the people that need the solutions. So you need to put them on board as you make these informed decisions. All right. So in summary, you need to prepare your report, tailor it to the audience. You need to include some visual aids. You highlight the key issues that needs to be, dealt with. Make informed decision, engage the stakeholders. The final step is review and revise your monitoring plan. Monitoring is an ongoing process, so meaning you need to regularly review your plan. There are certain data that maybe when you started your project, you could collect this data based on some of the things that with time goes by, you realize the facility or the community um, has lost internet or has lost access to internet. You may want to go paper-based because you'll not be able to capture that information. Or so just the whole purpose is just review the plan regularly. If you even do it quarterly, do that. If you're going to do it semi-annually, do that. But review the plans quarterly. Not quarterly, but review the plans regularly. Okay, review just the whole M&E system regularly. Okay, the other thing that you need to do is you identify the need for review. Okay, you gather some of the lessons learned, you assess the program change, review the monitoring plan, implement a revised plan. So basically, it's it. You have your plan, have a look at it at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year or at the end of the half of the year. You do that review. Is our system still in place? We will look at also another important aspect that I want to share with you, which is also another step. What are some of the things that you need to consider as you are doing your monitoring, program, as you're monitoring your program? So during the planning phase, right, when you integrate it with the whole project cycle, so during the planning phase, you need to develop an M&D plan based on your program framework. Okay, create a data flow plan to clarify data collection, reporting, and responsibility. So basically, as you're doing your planning your project, you need to develop an M&D plan. Something that we talked about in module, I think that was module 2. You develop an M&D plan. You create a data flow plan. How is data going to move, right? You clarify the data collection tools, clarify the reporting, clarify the responsibility. And then when you are now in the implementation phase, how do you integrate effective program monitoring? So you need to track relevant program indicators. So consistently monitor the indicators specified in the M&E plan to assess both the outputs and the outcome levels. So you're going to develop some dashboards to just visualize the progress. You can develop some indicator tracking tools where you just be able to track how you're moving as a project, right? So the other thing that you need to do is to analyze and summarize the data. Conduct regular data analysis to identify trends, challenges, and success, right? So you're going to summarize these findings in a very, very good format that is easily going to be understood by the key stakeholders. Okay. You know, some of the ways on how you can also just integrate effective program monitoring is you need to review and use phase, right? You need to review and use phase. So what do I mean here? You need to hold data review meetings, okay? Data review meetings. So how do you integrate? You need to integrate effective program monitoring through review and use, right? So hold data review meetings. You need to schedule periodically data review meetings with the program staff, stakeholders to review your data, discuss the findings, and generate insights. Okay, you identify the action steps. Okay, you collaborate you collaborate with your team and develop action steps to address the identified challenges. um, the other thing also, you apply the action steps, right? You don't just come up with action steps and just pack them. You need to apply. Okay, we have a deadline, we need to ensure that this thing is done, we need to ensure that this thing is done based on the data. So all these things is how you can integrate effective monitoring. What are some of the tools and techniques that you may want to use when you're doing effective monitoring? So data management software that you can use if you're dealing with a smaller project. You may want to use Excel, Google Sheet, yeah, even just specialized M&D software just for tracking and analyzing data. If you're using a larger project, you may want to use the DSIS tool, or you may want to use SQA, and yeah, you may want to use even paid platforms so that they can help you enhance. Okay, the other thing that you can use also are surveys and questionnaires. These are tools and techniques that you may want to use. You develop some of these if you want to do a qualitative kind of data tracking, or if you want to do a quantitative data tracking, you can develop those things. You need to use a dashboard, right? You have all these indicators in one place, and they help you to just visualize how your project is performing. Use a dashboard. Feedback mechanism. You need to establish channels where stakeholders can give feedback continuously to your project. What are some of the challenges and mitigation in monitoring? So the first challenge is limited resources, which is very common, especially in the non-organization space. There's limited resources targeting monitoring activities, right? So what strategy can organizations take? So they need to focus on prioritizing essential indicators, right? So you need to utilize technology to improve efficiency, explore partnerships, for resource sharing, as well as provide targeted training to maximize human resource. So people need to be trained about M&E. Um, you need to partner with different kind of people so that if at all there's an organization that is in that community and they're dealing with the same uh, kind of people, same project, same target, you may want to, collaborate with that team so that you, when data is collected, you know how you'll be able to, share some of the partnership opportunity. Data quality issues. This is a very, very big issue in M&E, data quality. Okay, so we need to establish standardized data collection protocols, something that we mentioned in the previous modules. Data collection protocols, right? Conduct regular training for data collectors, implement quality control measures such as audits, leverage technology to improve data accuracy. That's it. Resistance to change strategy. There are people that just resist change. You're implementing a project. You know, there are just people that will just, resist that, kind of support, right? So how do you do that? You need to engage stakeholders from onset so that you build support. They clearly communicate the benefits and clearly communicate the benefits of monitoring, as well as you foster a culture that values learning and adaptation, right? So you need to provide the necessary resources that are easy to understand, that the key stakeholders can understand. The other thing also is stakeholder engagement. Sometimes in the M&E space, we lack some form of stakeholder engagement because of the nature of the work. So meaning we need to ensure that we build strong relationship with stakeholders through regular communication. We share with them the feedback. When you do a report, we don't share them feedback. So we need to do that stakeholder engagement, to strengthen the stakeholder engagement, build that strong relationship with the stakeholders through communication, and also getting them involved in the data collection process so that they feel part and parcel of the whole project. Data security and privacy concerns. It's an issue, especially if an organization does not have a system in place, right? So everybody has access to everybody. Everybody has access to every data. So it becomes a big concern. So we need to develop and enforce data protection processes. So ensure that data management systems are secure, and then you train staffs on ethical data handling practices. Adapting to changing context. Things change now and then. For example, there are areas where are hard to reach, right? When it's rain season, you cannot go there because the road network is bad, right? So now when you cannot go there, meaning you will not be able to collect that data, right? So you see things are changing, right? So meaning um, you need to now find ways on how you're going to collect that data. So you need to be flexible to the changing context, right? So you need to monitor also external factors that may affect your program implementation. It could be the weather, it could be the economy. So you need to do all these things, put everything in place, then conduct regular review of the M&E plan to ensure that it's relevant. Okay, so inconsistent data collection methods. So it's also one of the challenges. So you need to ensure that data collection tools are standardized and procedures to ensure consistency are reliable, clear, and creating also clear guidelines and templates for all team members to follow. Lack of stakeholders buy-in. Stakeholders, they may not buy in that project. Maybe because when you are implementing the project, you never included them in the project design and planning. So um, there's that lack of stakeholder buy-in. So what you need to do is you need to involve stakeholders in the design and implementation of the monitoring plan to foster ownership and commitment to monitoring activities. Okay, insufficient training and capacity. Okay, I mean, organization, not everybody in the organization is aware of M&E or they know how to do M&E. So you need to build capacity. People need to know what M&E is all about so that they're part and parcel of WOW monitoring and evaluation.